prohibition cannot be enforced for the simple reason that the majority of American people do not want it enforced and are resisting its enforcement. That being so, the orderly thing to do under our form of government is to abolish a law which cannot be enforced, a law which the people of the country do not want enforced.
Welcome to the show, recording live from KCDI Studios. This is the Kent and Zach Show with Caitlyn Guthrie, blasting anyone who makes us angry. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and ridicule to anything that makes the news our purview. It's political, it's skeptical, it's triggering, and we are not holding anything back. It is definitely Troy Unruh's fault for all of the technical difficulties, and for that, we have a... Meme of the day. I'm your host, Kit Williams, along with host Caitlyn Guthrie. Which way? That way. And Zach Wharf, thanks for joining the show.
Welcome back. Yeah, if you've joined us before, thank you for your time and feedback. And welcome if you're new here. Be sure to like and follow, subscribe, share, and let us know your thoughts as we carry on. Preferably in the form of as many comments and reacts to other comments as you can. Facebook always does a major crackdown on visibility during election cycles, so we don't mind if you sad or angry face us either. If you want to keep seeing us on your timeline, interaction is key.
What's up, guys? I'm ready to do it again. Season finale. We did a whole season of this.
A whole season?
I don't do anything
Did anyone
consistently enough. Like, ADHD doesn't allow me to do anything for that long of a time, and we've done a whole season of this. Welcome to the show, guys. I'm the Zach Man. I'm uncensored. I'm unapologetic. I will not apologize for being unapologetic. Don't ask. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Well, you know all the things. Enjoy the show. We got a great one tonight. I'm super excited about our guest. Absolutely. Talk about a story to tell. It's got all of it. It's got the dramas. It's got the angers. It should have riots. Those are coming. That's probably the sequel to this story.
We don't promote violence. We don't promote violence.
Hey, sometimes you gotta riot it.
Yeah, so tonight is our season 1 finale. We will be taking a few weeks off to spend time with family and friends. We will be back with a bang in October as election season heats up, returning to bring you our thoughts and opinions on candidates and the constitutional amendments on the ballot in November. Later in the show, we welcome Alexis Lowder, a teacher who was fired from Sacred Heart in Emporia, Kansas, for her involvement with the Vote No Emporia. Starting us off tonight, here's a short video by CNN's Great Big Story highlighting this week's show sponsor, the Garden City Community Mexican Fiesta.
The 96th Garden City Community Mexican Fiesta continues this week with the 18th annual Miss Garden City Queen Scholarship Pageant this Friday, September 9th at 7 p.m.
This Saturday, September 10th, festivities begin at 11 a.m. at Stevens Park. Official cry with Oscar Sombreras. I'm sorry, I'm so bad at Spanish. You always give those to me.
That's why I give them to you. Exactly. And we also have live music.
Live music, and there's going to be a lot there. You don't have to speak Spanish to enjoy these events.
No.
I've been to them my whole life growing
Yes.
up. And every year it's a blast. The food is amazing.
It's really
and
good.
if you live in
Culture.
Garden City, you already know that. But yeah, it's a fantastic event. It's a lot of fun. That Modelo's commercial is wonderful. I'm so glad that
Yeah.
they came out to produce that.
Yeah.
That was
Funny
awesome.
story.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying a story behind that. For those that don't know, is Modelo came out and did that commercial, and then a few weeks later, the Somali community in our area had that attempted bombing, and so Modelo came out and shot. The dogs always have an opinion. The Modelo came out and shot another commercial to show the diversity in this community and how beautiful it is. So
Yeah.
absolutely, cheers to Modelo on that, and to the organizers of the Mexican Fiesta.
Yeah. The
Absolutely.
Community Mexican Fiesta is a public nonprofit 501c3 organization whose mission is to celebrate Mexico's independence from Spanish rule, to promote cultural awareness in our community, and to help provide financial assistance to students hoping to attend Garden City Community College.
Jumping ahead a bit, we're going to cover events all through September since we're not going to be here. October 1st, I believe it is, Leave a Legacy. The Spirit 5K road race is back for 2022. This year, Leave a Legacy will also have a virtual Heart Winkin Half Marathon. The Spirit 5K is awaiting USA Track and Field Organization certification. These races allow individuals and teams the opportunity to win cash prizes and other prizes while honoring their loved ones throughout their epic journey to the finish line. Proceeds from the race fund the Leave a Legacy Foundation's mission to improve cancer care resources in Southwest Kansas. 100% of the proceeds remain in this region. It's super important. If you're a runner, get out there and join Leave a Legacy's efforts by making an impact in our community. The link to more information is in our comments section. So Zach's muted. He did the same thing I did earlier, which is absolutely hilarious.
I'm muted because of the dogs, and then of course it was my turn. The event you want to get tickets to in advance is the event of the year, Wild Affair. Lee Richardson Zoo's wildest, most prosperous fundraiser of the year. September 24th, this exceptional evening takes place under the stars of the zoo's West Green and features music as well as special appearances from zoo ambassadors.
Lee Richardson Zoo will be closed during regular zoo hours September 24th to prepare for the festivities. The Southwest Gate will reopen at 6 p.m. for the event. Food served until 8 p.m. Tickets are all-inclusive and just $50 per person or $60 after September 16th. Tickets must be purchased in advance and will not be available at the event. Guests must be 21 to enter. Purchase tickets beginning August 23rd at Lee Richardson Zoo, Blue Fox Boutique, and Ward's Garden Center, online at www.folrz.org or on the Friends Facebook A Wild Affair event page.
So Garden City Downtown Vision will be hosting Fall Fest on September 17th from 9:30 a.m. To 4 p.m. The event features a wide variety of vendors, the Kansas Cruisers Car Show, food trucks, the NASDAQ 500 races, along with bucket duck races, live music and entertainment, a paint the front door contest among downtown businesses. This is something you don't want to miss out on an incredible day in downtown Garden City. So lots of fun stuff to do in Garden City over the month. Just a little bit for everybody.
It's good to see downtown doing all of this stuff again, after 2-3 years of COVID and everything kind of iffy and whatnot. It's cool to see us getting back to it and just resuming life.
Absolutely. Just in time for fall.
Absolutely.
So
at this time, we would like to welcome this week's guest, Alexis Lowder, to the show.
Hi.
Alexis.
Hi, Alexis. Thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for giving us a chance to get vulnerable with you. We're a bunch of people who all went on a journey in part or in whole because of the August, Kansas Constitutional Amendment Initiative. And being in a red state and on the opposite side of those ideological opinions, we were or are or will face a spectrum of consequences. So again, we are grateful for the opportunity to hear about your experiences. I've only read a couple of articles. I've stuck to the Eastern Kansas News and local journalism for some details. And I thought the Emporia Gazette did well retelling your side of the situation, but we wanted to make sure that you got a chance to be uncut and to give more of the story. So please interrupt me and correct me if I'm repeating anything misleading at any time. So can we start with maybe your personal history in Catholicism and past anti-abortion stance? You're not alone there. I'm an ex-evangelical myself and was confronted with a medical emergency in my 20s, and I've grappled with sort of the shame of judging others in those terrifying situations ever since, because we never know what someone's going through. So how long were you a practicing Catholic, and when did you decide to leave?
Sure. Thank you all for having me. So I was a Catholic during my teenage years and maybe into like my early 20s. When I hit adulthood, I found that I just really wasn't vibing with the church. And then it took me several years after that to realize that that feeling was me questioning the church's dogmatic and downright harmful teachings. It took me a while to realize that the reason I felt uncomfortable was because I knew that deep down, despite the church's claims of love and acceptance, they were promoting a culture of hatred against non-Catholics, hatred against LGBTQ people, hatred against women. And that hatred from women takes multiple forms. For one thing, women are not allowed to be ordained as priests. So therefore, they can't assume leadership positions within the church hierarchy. And anytime that a group of people is not allowed to be a part of the decision-making process, that group will be oppressed. And that is something that's been demonstrated countless times throughout history. The church's position on birth control, which for anyone who's unfamiliar, the Catholic Church's position is that any birth control other than abstinence is a sin, and sex before marriage is a grave sin. And in fact, I think that my faith in the church started to crumble around the time that I started having premarital sex, and I didn't hate myself like the church said that I should. And of course, we all know the Catholic Church's position on abortion. In fact, the Catholic Church poured millions of dollars into promoting Amendment 2, which to me sounds a lot like a violation of the laws barring tax-exempt organizations from political lobbying.
They skated right on that line, that's for sure.
Yeah, they found a loophole.
Yeah, even after I fully separated myself from the church or kind of drifted away from the church, I still maintained this belief that abortion was wrong for several years, honestly. And there wasn't really this definitive point at which I completely separated myself from the church, a day where I decided to leave. It was very gradual. And eventually, after not going to church for several years, I just realized that I'm an atheist.
So, how long were you at Sacred Heart for as a teacher, if you don't mind me asking?
For 1 year.
1 year as a teacher, okay. And what were the circumstances that led up to you ultimately deciding to take a position at Sacred Heart, even though you are no longer a practicing Catholic?
Well, my spouse and I moved back to Emporia in 2021 last year. I'd been teaching at a community college down in southeast Kansas, and they decided not to renew my contract and the contracts of a bunch of other faculty members, which it was a real mess. But anyway, we moved back to Emporia to be closer to his family, and I needed a job. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in music performance, vocal, and there are not a lot of job opportunities for that kind of work in Emporia. I also don't have the certification to teach in public K through 12 schools. An acquaintance told me that Sacred Heart had been looking for a music teacher for years, and private schools don't have to follow the same certification rules as public schools. So I went ahead and applied. And I had some major reservations about applying. I knew that they would ask about my religious beliefs. And by that point, I was an out-and-out atheist for years. I also recognize the harm that results in the Catholic Church's teachings, but I thought I could ignore all that because I'm a music teacher, so I could just focus on music and not have to deal with theology. And in the interview, I was asked about my faith, and I told them that I was no longer a practicing Catholic. I didn't say atheist, but I thought it was pretty well understood that I wasn't religious. And I got the job, and despite the trepidation I felt of being employed by the Catholic Church, I accepted it. And I really enjoyed the work I did for the most part. Working with the kids was great, but other times were not so great. Like, I think it was in October, whatever month the Catholic Church has its month-long anti-abortion crusade, I had to sit through a meeting where the homeroom teachers brainstormed ways to include the anti-abortion agenda in their classroom, like for all grade levels, kindergarten through 5th.
Wow.
Luckily, teaching is special. I didn't have to participate in that, but it was a real challenge to bite my tongue.
Kindergarten through 5th grade, we're talking about.
Yeah, the irony of them protesting things that are taught in younger grades in public school versus like introducing these children to a concept that they probably not discussed in their home at all. You know, if we want to talk about learning something too early.
The immense amount of projection in it.
And the scare tactics too is a huge part. And you know, they're not giving any kind of sex ed. So all they're telling kids is that babies are being murdered.
Yeah, that's terrifying. So I think I read in a WIBW publication that your passion with abortion education started well before Kansans were notified of the Value of Both Amendment. How did you come to find yourself with more than just a desire to learn about what was happening in Kansas regarding abortions?
Well, when I was anti-abortion, I was very quiet about it because I could not align myself with the so-called pro-life movement. My opinion was mostly formed by being kind of a hippie soul. I've been vegetarian since I was 16. I'm very anti-war, anti-death penalty, all that. And it was clear, even misguided as I was back then, that the pro-life movement is not actually trying to protect life. Most of them, for example, are pro-death penalty and pro-war, things that result in direct deaths of living people. Many of them are gun nuts that will tell you that you're murdering a child if you have an abortion, but they think it's acceptable for children to be murdered in their schools so they can keep their automatic rifles that they don't need.
Yeah, it's got to be authorized.
Right.
And they're largely against policies that would actually prevent people from dying. Universal health care should be a priority if they want to protect life. They should be fighting for housing equity to prevent people from becoming homeless and dying in the streets. If they want to prevent deaths, they should be committed to providing food assistance without all the hurdles that people in Kansas and elsewhere have to jump through to keep themselves and their kids from starving to death. Mm-hmm. The thing that really unsettled me about so-called pro-lifers is that, like we kind of mentioned earlier, they aren't in favor of policies that have actually been proven to reduce the rates of abortion. Comprehensive sex ed and birth control access, those are two things proven to reduce unwanted pregnancies. And when you prevent unwanted pregnancies, you lower the occurrence of abortions. And pro-lifers want none of that.
Well,
yeah, it's
just like Tender Lungs talks about. He's referring to numbers. I believe it's 11 through 31, 5:11:31, where abortion is literally right there described in the Bible and given a recipe on how to induce one. And those are the verses they never want to touch. They never read the whole thing.
I mean, and it's the same with, their citation of Leviticus to be homophobic when they're, out eating lobster and wearing shirts made of two materials.
Yeah, take this part seriously, but we were just kidding about this part.
What always gets me when you're talking to an atheist is their general understanding of the Bible. I grew up in the church, and Zach did not. And Zach is an atheist, and he knows more scripture than I ever could. And it just blows my mind because, he didn't go. I did.
Scripture is really what directed me toward my ideal, because I'm kind of in the middle of everybody. They're like universalist spiritually, but not attached to a church anywhere, and certainly like actually reading and ingesting the scripture that I had known and sort of turning it into a voice that was much more familiar with me instead of like an ethereal type of situation, and it continued to push me into, I guess, more grounded understanding of certainly humanity.
Yeah.
In the least,
So, Alexis, what was it like, and specifically, what kind of turmoil or process did you go through in order to be involved in, and certainly the leadership of Vote No in Emporia, Kansas?
So the way that the Vote No rally came together, well, I know we all knew that it was coming with the way the Supreme Court was stacked during the Trump presidency, but that day in June when the Supreme Court officially overturned Roe v. Wade was just terrible. I remember just feeling so hopeless. And up until the results were announced in the evening on August 2nd, I fully believed that Republicans would succeed in getting Amendment 2, or the Value Them Both Amendment, passed. I didn't have much faith that we would actually be able to beat it, especially not by such overwhelming numbers, which was just really uplifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when Roe v. Wade was overturned, at some point in the day, I realized that just tears weren't going to solve anything. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like the best, most immediate action that I could organize was a rally. I'm part of this group called Emporia Community Action that's dedicated to addressing oppression at the local level. So I sent a message to the group chat and asked if anyone was interested in putting together a rally, and most of the people in the group chat were. So then we started a separate group chat specifically for rally planning, and a couple of people added friends of theirs who were willing and had the resources to help. I didn't really want to be in charge because I'd never organized something of that scale before. But it was my idea in the first place, so I couldn't,
like, oh no,
just put all the responsibility on someone else. Like,
Sure.
I talk to my daughter about that a lot. We call it accidental leadership, where it's like, that's, there it is.
I seem to fall into that a lot. I'm definitely not trying to take leadership positions, but I did really. I relied a lot on the experience of other people in that group for many of the practicalities of setting up the rally, like getting a permit.
Absolutely.
And knowing that, I knew that I could face retaliation at work. And so the rally was mostly promoted through ECA's Facebook page. But when the media began to cover the event, they naturally wanted to speak to someone kind of at the helm of things. And I wasn't going to hide my involvement after putting this much work into it. And honestly, just being loudly and proudly pro-abortion in this day and age is really important to fighting the narrative of the anti-abortion movement. So it kind of fell on me to discuss things with media, and I was interviewed by several outlets. And the day that the Emporia Gazette published their story, and I can't remember who all else published theirs. It was the Monday after the rally. that same day that the article came out, I got a voicemail from the principal at Sacred Heart where I was called in for a meeting the next day. No details were given, but I mean, I knew exactly what was going on.
Wow.
And then instead of just outright firing me, they dragged it on. They made me have a hearing the next week. So when I went to that meeting, I was just notified that I had to
a hearing? Like they took you to court?
Kind of.
That's an option?
Probably all the church officials. I'm assuming the preacher or pastor or reverend or priest, whatever they're called.
Yeah, the priest
Cardinals,
wasn't there.
bishops.
It was a panel of people within the archdiocese education system. So like a superintendent,
Wow.
a teacher from another school within.
They brought people in.
Mm-hmm.
So the Catholics literally drag everything out. Weddings, funerals, firings. You can't just fire you.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Purgatory.
No, it's
if
just
purgatory's
it's
not
weird.
real, they're going to make it real.
As an outsider looking into it, I've never understood the ritualistic nature of everything. But that does kind of lead up to catching up to everything that led up to your termination, which is the story that you've talked about repeatedly, I'm sure. Well, focus in on the parts that the media explicitly left out. Like they sent you an email, right, that explicitly stated the reason for your termination, and were you aware that your job was in jeopardy to participate in all of this? I mean, they made you go through a hearing. What?
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please tell it.
Well, like I said before, like I knew going into planning the rally that I could very well lose my job, and I've got to say that I'm lucky enough to be I was teaching part-time. I've got a spouse with a job that pays decently, so I knew we would be all right if I lost my job, and it was a calculated risk, and I know a lot of people don't have the privilege of getting to speak out.
But you had the power.
Facing the repercussions. Yeah.
So you had the responsibility.
Yeah, and that's another thing, using privilege for, there are ways that privilege can be utilized to fight for the greater good and all that.
Sure.
So I knew going in that I might lose my job, but I really hit that point where I'd rather be on the right side of the issue than just be a silent participant as human rights are actively stripped away. That being said, I was a nervous wreck the entire time. That whole week and a half, that whole week of waiting, and before the initial meeting when I was told about the hearing. And when I got the call, I knew that I did the right thing. I knew the Catholic Church sucks, and in some ways getting fired might not be all that bad, but I was so nervous between getting the call on Monday and the meeting on Tuesday. And the one comfort that I really had was that everything would be out in the open, and since I wasn't going to back down, I would be fired. And I just kept telling myself, it'll be over. They'll fire me and it will be over. But then instead of firing, they told me that I had to come to have a hearing, which they scheduled for the following week. So another week of that back and forth between acceptance and anxiety.
Yeah. It's crazy, that story of retaliation. It burns deep with me too. I have had other live streams that I've been on where, I've been pretty vocal about politics as they've changed and moved throughout, the last couple of years. It's been wild. And, as we said earlier, we live in blood red Kansas, and, there just isn't a lot of, fact shared thoughts. Everything went completely to the conspiracy theorist side, or just propaganda all over, and nobody researches anything. So, here we were, loud and proud of our thoughts and views, and I had trouble at a job because people were calling saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe he supports masks. He's the devil," type of stuff. Going on. So I feel your pain with that, and even with this show here. The value them both is what got us started. On this show, none of us were really doing anything. I had kind of said, I'm not going to be political anymore, and I'm just going to leave it alone, and yada yada yada. And then, we got to do something, and nobody's doing anything. So
I was specifically ignoring the topic, and because I already knew what I was going to be voting for. Mm-hmm. And then the guys were like, "Hey, do you want to come talk about this issue?" So it really forced me to look into it, and I'm glad because come to find out that not just in the propaganda part of the media, but in the specific amendment wording. If anybody ever goes, that's what I like to do, is get to the Kansas legislative portion of it and read what they wrote down. There's just incorrect, not factual in an amendment, and that blew my mind. I was floored that it was being forced to be voted for us to be.
And that's the hardest part about this argument, is because we're literally talking about a group where facts don't matter. When you go to have an abortion in Kansas, doctors are literally legally required to tell you that an abortion can cause breast cancer, even though there is zero factual basis behind that. In fact, it can help prevent breast cancer to the extent that when you lactate, it increases your chances of developing breast cancer down the road. So by not having a baby, there's a counter argument to have it. But the point is, facts don't matter. It's all about the sentiment. Just like Alexis mentioned earlier about homosexuals being mentioned in the Bible. That wasn't mentioned in the Bible until the 50s and 60s when they started amending it. And they started amending it because the original word they were using was pedophile. And there was a lot of issues, so we didn't want people getting mad at them. And then sometimes those words were used as masturbators. And we don't want people leaving church because they enjoy doing that, so we'll change the word to homosexuals. Mm-hmm. And so, again, facts don't matter when you make the rules. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet Flint water causes all kinds of things. I wouldn't put it up against our water here either.
I don't know. Things are changing there for sure. Alexis, can you describe the interaction around their discretion or direction for you to repent from your participation in Vote No? First of all, did they allude to maybe being able to keep your position if you did? Did you know it was a pomp and circumstance type thing?
Oh, it was totally pomp and circumstance. Probably the kicker of the whole hearing was that the panel that handled the hearing was composed entirely of women. So I got to experience that fun little thing where women uphold the patriarchy.
Oh, no. I would have cried.
Including the principal of Sacred Heart, who's a woman. But when I was informed of the hearing, one of the first things I asked was if I was allowed to bring someone. I really didn't feel comfortable being interrogated by these people without somebody there to support me, if only just for my nerves. And the answer was no one was allowed to accompany me, which just sends all kinds of red flags. And with the pomp and circumstance, they really tried to maintain this appearance of neutrality in ways that were just a thin veneer for the quiet intimidation of being punished for going against the church's teachings. For one, the hearing was held in a different Catholic church in town instead of at the school. They also really tried to sell this hearing as an opportunity for me to defend myself, defend my job. And another thing that was really funny, the word abortion was never once used by either the principal in our meeting the week before or by the hearing panel. And I thought that was really interesting. It was always, you held a vote no rally and that goes against the church's teachings, without actually saying what that meant, without, actually addressing the root cause of the whole disagreement. Since I wasn't allowed to...
So do you argue in that circumstance and debate theology, or do you just, okay, whatever, move on?
Yeah, I didn't. There wasn't really any discussion of theology. They just kind of asked if I did it, and I was like, yeah, and I'll heckin' do it again.
Love it.
And since I wasn't allowed to bring a witness with me, I made it really clear at the beginning that I was recording the conversation. And the lady that was in charge of the hearing got really upset, and she was like, "We don't do that. The hearing is over in that case." And then she went out in the hall to call the archdiocese lawyer, who told her that I was within my rights because you have the right to record conversations in Kansas.
You didn't even have to tell them you were recording.
Yeah, but if it goes to court, they really frown on sneaky recordings. So,
but legally in Kansas, only one party has to know the recording. So.
Right.
But it was nice of you to let them know that you were recording.
And and when she finished her conversation with their lawyer, she came back and had another of the panel members do their own recording.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And I can't really remember what all was said during the hearing, unless I want to go listen to the recording, which I don't.
Yeah, I feel you there.
It's all just kind of a blur with all the anxiety I was feeling. But I made it clear that I stood by my actions. And I remember one of them asking me if what I had planned to tell my students if they heard about the rally or saw it in the news and asked about it. And I responded that I would redirect their attention back to music, which anyone who teaches children knows you have to do that a lot. Anytime that they get off topic, they want to know about your personal life. You always have to redirect children back to whatever you're trying to get them to do. There were a lot of loaded questions about how I could separate my work life from my personal life, which apparently is a no-no. If you work for a Catholic school, they believe that you are obligated to represent the church at all times, on and off the clock. And I believe in a firm separation of work and personal life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. So if some years down the line, some of your students from last year, which doesn't seem improbable, they're capable little geniuses, if they happen upon this interview, what message would you like to impart to them?
Well, I really hope they're still enjoying music and exploring their creativity. I hope they didn't stop pursuing music. And I'd want them to know that I'm sorry for quietly participating in their brainwashing by staying silent for that year. Not that it would have really done a lot of good to try to change anything. I'd encourage them to think for themselves and to not believe everything that the church or any other institution tells them. And most importantly, I hope they'll let empathy and kindness guide their actions and their politics, especially when empathy and kindness are antithetical to the church's teachings.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Tenderloins with another banger. So we've been able to briefly chat here and there. And one thing that really shines through is you still have a burning passion to teach Kansans about abortion education. Have you gained any wisdom through this entire situation? Did you learn anything new about yourself?
Well, I was already a supporter of abortion rights when I took the job, and through DSA, which is the Democratic Socialists of America, which I'm a member of, I had already formed some connections with the Kansas Abortion Fund, who I try to raise money for whenever I can. So, to anyone who's listening, please go to KansasAbortionFund.org. Make a donation. This is an organization that they help low-income Kansans cover the cost of their abortion because, unfortunately, there is a gap. There are gaps in abortion access because of financial barriers, especially with the 24-hour waiting period. We only have 4 clinics in the state, and they are in the Kansas City area and Wichita. So especially people from Western Kansas, a lot of times have to stay overnight to get an abortion, which is completely unnecessary. And so there are costs of traveling and childcare, and the Kansas Abortion Fund helps kind of overcome those obstacles. And the big thing that I came out of this whole ordeal with is probably just more energy and enthusiasm for supporting abortion rights in Kansas. Now that I don't have to hide myself from my employer, which was the case before, I would really love to become more involved in the fight to expand abortion access in our state, because there's a lot of work that comes after defeating the amendments. Republicans are not going to let the issue go. They're not going to see the results. There are some of them that refuse to accept the results and, with demanding the recounts. And when
that guy's so weird. Oh my gosh.
When they finally have to accept that they can't go further with the recounts, they're not going to just be like, oh, well, everyone spoke, I guess we have to leave abortion alone. There are going to be continued attacks. And
they both has promised to money.
Yeah, and we have 2 more amendment votes coming up in November that we need to watch out for, and we'll be back to talk more about that later. But I'm really hoping now that, the public has, within a resounding no, that it was an astronomical number, like you said, that voted no in the state of Kansas, that legislators wise up a little bit and they don't put this at us every election cycle, because they can, and that's not something that we want. Everything's falling apart here.
Until we get rid of that supermajority, which Kansas Democrats are
ranked choice voting.
Yes, we need ranked choice voting.
Oh, yeah, we've had discussions about it here. We're still, as a team, a little out on it yet. We want to see some more results, more evidence-based stuff. But it is very interesting. And what it did in Alaska was very intriguing as well. So we're keeping an eye on that. And that's something that we're going to be talking about on the show quite a bit, and other ways that we can change our voting styles as well. A lot of people, especially out here in Western Kansas, just don't vote. They don't feel represented anywhere, local, state, or national level. So, voting's so important.
Yeah, we've got judges coming up.
We do.
Sheriff's election comes up.
Yeah.
And in about half of Kansas's counties, there's not even a county Democratic Party. They're not even trying to do any organizing in mostly Western Kansas.
Boy, I don't know if you've ever seen the show before, but I do a bit called Superman, and I could do a very long bit on Superman and the Kansas Democratic Party.
Yeah, Zach has been involved before they...
We don't give, they don't show us much love out here. We don't show them much love back.
I will say,
Go ahead.
I will say that Democrats are trying harder at the national and I think at the state level too. They're trying harder to push that. A few years ago, a lot of Democrats were still sitting on their hands on whether they even supported abortion, because they care more about attracting middle of the road moderates that maybe haven't decided whether to lean Democrat or lean Republican. So they keep taking steps to the right to try to cater to this demographic instead of embracing progressives.
Yes, which is so weird because the two largest voting populations are people that are younger than we are. So the ones who are just getting into the age of voting, Gen Z millennials, and then Latin voters. And so neither of the parties, as far as I know, are really focusing in on that kind of representation or even asking us questions about what should be happening. It's bizarre to watch.
It has been.
Also, I was very much an enthusiastic Democrat until I learned that a progressive like Bernie is never going to be allowed. It's just the Democratic Party made it extremely clear that they're never going to let that happen. And that's why I left the party myself. And it seems like that they are trying to cater towards, 20% is Republican, 20% is Democrat, and then everybody else is in the middle somewhere. And they're not trying to pull anybody from the middle. They're trying to pull people from that Republican side to re-register on their side. And that's not
which occurs in Kansas.
To the left.
Yeah, because of the closed primaries, we do that. These people over here. Do that all the time to make sure that we're inside the ballot issues, or at least I just moved out of a township, and so when you have something, when you have a population that is that small, those votes can directly affect where you're living. So Alexis, what is next for you? You have some opportunity here, a little bit of freedom maybe. What would you like to see yourself doing in 5 years?
Before
10
you
years?
reach a firm decision on that, Garden City could desperately use a music teacher.
Absolutely. I was going to bring that
Just
up.
throwing it out there.
In K through 12, I hope to go back to teaching at the college level. It was fun to work with the little ones, but the most immediate thing in my future is finishing the last leg of my PhD program, working on a PhD in musicology, starting my dissertation. In my research for since I was an undergrad, my research has been focused on composers who are women and or people of color. And my dissertation is going to be on Florence Price, who is a pioneer. She was the first Black woman to have a symphony performed by a major American orchestra, and her music's just great. I should finish my degree next spring, and I'll apply for jobs in the musicology field. So looking for positions at universities, but there's quite a scarcity of musicology jobs as universities are curtailing on workers' rights by they're hiring way less tenure track professors, and instead they're taking the workload, the teaching load, and putting it on adjunct faculty who are paid peanuts, and graduate teaching assistants who are paid even worse than peanuts. So I hope that I can continue my research and work in that field, but I'm seriously considering looking for work in reproductive justice advocacy, because I feel like I could do a lot of good there. I'm just not quite sure what that would look like.
So if you're out there and you need Alexis, let her know.
Yes, please.
Same to you. If you know any K through 12 elementary teachers that want to teach music, Garden City's awesome. Past our politics, Garden City's really awesome. Send them our way.
There's the teacher shortage is. Yeah. There's not a teacher shortage. There's just less teachers are willing to put up with what the conservatives that have dismantled our public education system have
it's crazy.
Made us deal with, and just the horrible way that teachers have been treated throughout the pandemic.
Just like dangerous levels of.
Yes.
Yeah, was astounded. Just, I literally putting lives at risk by.
Yeah, the public schools, it seems scary what's going on there, but what you went through at a private school, I mean, gosh, you went in front of a board. One of the questions, did you get paid for that meeting, that hearing? I think Tenderlungs had brought, no, yeah,
Because you're contracted.
Honestly,
just,
I didn't.
so you were required.
Actually, I was hourly because I was teaching part-time. It was a part-time
Oh my
position.
gosh.
And I didn't even think to bill them for it. I should have.
Get a lawyer to write a letter.
So what a story. Alexis, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. We feel for you and what you went through. We appreciate you being loud and proud of, the things that you were involved in this election. We wish you the best of luck in the future, and we hopefully, some of the things that you're working on and involved in, like I said, we don't get a lot out here in Western Kansas, so if you got stuff going on out in Emporia that you think is cool, reach out to us. We'd love to have you on the show in the future to talk about those things, and, other ways maybe our community can get involved as well.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for having me.
If you couldn't gather from me, I took my religion in a different way and get it from other things. And I think you very much represent the morals and values that I believe in. And that's, you had the power to do something.
Yeah.
You absolutely took responsibility to do it. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah,
You're
bravo.
a superhero.
Yes, you are. We do think you're a hero.
Brought Captain Marvel out for you today. So you just keep fighting that good fight. And I'm so proud of what you've done. Thank you so much for being on.
Well, folks, that was Alexis Lowder, retired for now, fired school teacher from Emporia School District, Sacred Heart. What a story, guys. I mean...
It's just wild. The Catholic Church is so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, religion in itself is weird. There's 3,000 gods known on this planet. We just got the James Webb photo of all these other galaxies that we didn't even know existed on top of the ones that are there. There's just so much left to be answered. What a season, guys. We did 9 shows. We had no idea what this was going to look like when we started out. We are taking the month of September off just to kind of reset a little bit and figure out what we're going to do moving forward. We will be back in October. It's a promise. It's a guarantee. We look forward to having some candidates on to talk to them about what they're running for. And our nonprofits in Garden City, we look forward to continuing to highlight those as well. What do you guys
look forward to going after our city council who refuses to even say one word about Troy?
It's so irritating, and I am hide. Did you tell me to hide?
Can't hide.
They can't hide. No. Yeah. I've been telling Zach we gotta wait until we go after the other city council members, and we're unleashing the Kraken during the month of September. So even though we won't be here live talking to you, our Facebook page is gonna be popping with those dank memes.
Yeah,
like
send
this
us
one.
your memes if you've got them.
Yeah, we really enjoy that. Keep reaching out to us, too, with your stories that you'd like to share. If you'd like someone to talk to. We're working on a few involving other nonprofits, believe it or not, in this town. But when we do investigative reporting, we have to have on the record sourcing. That's really important. So if you have reached out to us and told us your story, we appreciate you. We love you. And we're still working on them. And, hopefully here soon we'll have another story to expose more.
All you got to do is to pick up a rock in Garden City and you're going to find some corruption under it.
It's a sad thing.
Another dark corner.
I keep hearing, the term, in New York City, everything's like a diamond heist. Theft and things. There's sophisticated crime. And here in Garden City, many people just do it right out in the open, and no one does
Smash
anything.
and grab.
Well,
no one says anything.
The only way to get into any elected office here is to be willing to be a part of that group.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that group. Some of those people in it coming up on season 2 of With Caitlyn Guthrie, the Kent and Zach show. Thanks for joining us, guys. Bye.
Good night, true believers. Thwip, thwip.
Well, Test. Better. Take a minute to envision it, been the vision, we're ripping from a difference of opinion, inquisitive, isn't it? When the picture in the mirror isn't shit, but give it a minute, fix this image and hit the bricks with the viciousness. But don't play, cause one day you'll be saying, you shoulda, coulda, woulda, but my shit just wouldn't drop, cause you wouldn't have, but you're so worried, it was your world. When you hit them with the rhymes, they had no words. Just come back to the flip of the tongue fun that you once had and chug it like a beer and crush that. Go shave your mustache and write it down, cut that, and so much rap again. Oh, I'm getting tired of that. I don't know anymore what they call that. Getting so you know that something's missing. Let's go show 'em what rap is again. Like taking a step out of your front door for the first time and you want more with the sunshine, but you've been locked away, forgetting you don't care. Listen, it's not part of the mission. Just say what you got to say. Whether it makes sense, just a bunch of gibberish, spit from the hip, slipping so soft, and splitting your lip. You get a grip, cause as good as your shit is, you know it really isn't a big deal. Cause it'll turn heads bound too. It's your purpose round two, but you gotta open your eyes and realize it's right here. But to open your mind, you gotta try to fight fear and find a light bright enough to ignite and excite peers. But get their attention, I find you gotta give them a big boom. You're the fuel, and I got my lighter right here. Oh, I'm getting tired of that. I don't know anymore what they call that. Getting so you know that something's missing. Let's go show 'em what rap is again.